Long before the name of Genghis Khan thundered across the steppes and echoed in the chronicles of East and West, there existed the scattered, fragmented, and fiercely independent tribes of the Mongolian plateau. These were people without an empire, without a single ruler, yet with traditions, struggles, and lifeways that shaped the foundation of what would later become one of history's greatest empires. To understand Genghis Khan, one must first walk the windswept grasslands of the Mongols before him. The Mongolian plateau, vast and untamed, stretched from the forests of Siberia to the deserts of northern China. It was a land of extremes, icy winters that could freeze armies in their tracks and summers that turned the grass into oceans of green. Here, survival depended not on walls or cities but on mobility, herds, and the skill to ride and shoot. The people who lived here, Tatars, Merkits, Naimans, Karaits, Anggerat, and countless smaller clans, were nomads bound to the rhythms of pasture, water, and war. Chinese chroniclers of the Tang and Song dynasties often referred to these northern tribes as barbarians, dangerous horsemen who struck across the Great Wall. Yet within their own world, they were farmers of animals, shepherds of herds, masters of the bow, and keepers of complex traditions. The Mongol tribes lived in felt-covered jurs, portable round tents that could be packed within an hour and transported across the plains. They worshipped the eternal blue sky, Tengri, believing their lives were woven into the great balance of the heavens. Shamanic rites, fire sacrifices, and the whisper of drums were as much a part of their lives as the neighing of horses. But this world was not united. It was fractured by endless rivalry. The Tatars, supported at times by the powerful Jin dynasty of northern China, were one of the most dominant tribes. To their west, the Naimans ruled with strength, while the Karaits, known for their Nestorian Christian influences, controlled vast lands along trade routes. Alliances shifted as quickly as the weather. Yesterday's ally could be tomorrow's enemy. A tribal chieftain's power rested on charisma, strength, and the loyalty of warriors bound by blood oaths. The build-up to the age of Genghis Khan was marked by this constant turbulence. Warfare was not grand campaigns of empire but raids, swift cavalry strikes to steal herds, seize women and children, or humble a rival. The famed Chinese official and chronicler Zhao Hong once described these nomads as living like birds of prey, moving swiftly, never resting in one place for long and striking without warning. Raids gave wealth, honor, and survival, yet they also bred a cycle of vengeance. Entire generations grew up with the memory of wrongs to be avenged, creating a culture of endurance and retaliation. It was also an era of outside pressure. The rising Jin dynasty to the south sought to control the steppes, often playing tribes against each other. They armed one clan, weakened another, and demanded submission in exchange for trade. Tribes that resisted risked annihilation, as the Tatars once discovered when they rebelled. To the west, Turkic tribes and remnants of the Khitan people pressed in, carrying their own ambitions and traditions. In this crucible of strife, leaders emerged who were more than mere raiders. The Karait Khans built semi-stable polities, commanding tens of thousands of horsemen. The Naiman Khans employed written scripts and administrators, influenced by their neighbors in Central Asia. And the Tatars, often feared for their ferocity, became both the sword and shield of Chinese emperors when it suited imperial policy. Yet despite these advances, no single confederation could dominate the steppe for long. Pride, suspicion, and the weight of tradition made unity fragile. The climax of this pre-Genghis world came in battles fought tribe against tribe, sometimes uniting briefly against outside threats, only to collapse again into blood feuds. Fathers were killed, sons carried off as slaves, and widows married into rival tribes. In these struggles, survival meant learning to bend without breaking. Children who grew up in this environment learned to ride before they could walk, to shoot arrows before they could read, to endure hunger, cold, and exile. From such conditions, legends arose. Stories were told of leaders touched by Tengri, born to unite the fractured steppes. Prophecies whispered that one day a man would come who would gather the clans and end the cycle of endless raids. Yet in the centuries before that man arrived, unity remained a dream. The Mongol tribes continued their harsh existence, shaping skills of war, resilience, and adaptation that would later serve an empire. The aftermath of this fragmented age was paradoxical. On one hand, it prevented stability or great cultural centers from forming. The Mongol plateau remained a land of herders and warriors, not cities and temples. On the other hand, it forged the very traits that would define the Mongol people: mobility, adaptability, and endurance. Out of tribal rivalry came a warrior culture sharper than steel. Out of hardship came the toughness that made survival in extremes possible. The legacy of the pre-Genghis Mongols is therefore not empire but foundation. They were the raw stone, uncut and unpolished, from which Genghis Khan would later carve his vision of conquest. Their rivalries gave him enemies to defeat. Their traditions gave him symbols to harness. Their skills gave him the army to unleash upon the world. Without the Tatars, Naimans, Merkits, and Karaits, there would be no Genghis Khan, for he was both their product and their destroyer. Today, as we look back, it is easy to see the Mongols only through the lens of their greatest conqueror. Yet the centuries before him remind us of the patience of history. Empires do not spring from nothing. They rise from soil watered by struggle and nourished by survival. The Mongols before Genghis were not forgotten shadows, but the roots of a storm. Their lives, their battles, and their spirit made possible the empire that would follow, an empire that changed the world. And so, as the eternal blue sky stretched over the Mongolian plateau, the tribes continued their endless cycle of raid and revenge, never imagining that one of their own, Temujin, would soon rise from obscurity to fulfill the whispered prophecies and forge the most feared empire the world had ever seen. This episode has been brought to life through painstaking research, drawing from chronicles, archaeology, and the enduring memory of the steppes. If you value the effort that goes into telling history as it truly was, serious, immersive, and uncompromising, support this work so that the stories of our shared past continue to be told with the depth they deserve.